Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I've been informed, though I hear my voice being mic'd, that you have this opportunity to wear these so that you can hear me correctly. I at first thought they were giving me this because it would translate in English because they didn't think I spoke English very well, but you decide. You decide. So we have an excellent panel here today, and we're looking at digital and healthcare. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now introduce our illustrious panel, and then we'll kick off the debate. We have about 40 minutes. We started a little bit late, so I'll keep my entry very, very short. Let me start with Marco, our esteemed guest from the European Commission. Marco is the Acting Deputy Director General for Health in the Directorate of Santé. He's also the Director for Digital and EU Health and Health Systems Modernization in Santé as well. Welcome, Marco. I also then want to introduce to his right, Bartek Madej. You're the Head of Digital Health International and Europe IT for Bristol Myers Squibb, BMS. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Anik Fes, you're the VP IT and CIO of Medical Devices, EMEA for Johnson & Johnson MedTech. Welcome. And then finally, last but not least, Peter, longtime friend, actually, Marco also longtime friend, Head of Data Analytics and Methods Task Force of the European Medicines Agency. Welcome. Great. Excellent. So I want to just kick this off very quickly. This is about really the use of different digital technologies. Which is the most talked about digital technologies these days? Well, it's AI. And AI is going to be playing a vital role in the healthcare industry. And it's going to really help improve the way we are treated here in Europe. I was just telling Marco recently that I, unfortunately, had to do a medical surgery last year. And I couldn't think after this surgery, which was so excellent, it was here in Belgium, I couldn't think of any other place I wanted to be, possibly my own home country of France, where I want to get such treatment. And, clearly the EU is the best place to be for healthcare. And, I think in many areas we agree or disagree with the European Commission, maybe sometimes with the EMA, but we haven't seen more work being done since COVID and during COVID to improve healthcare systems. Right? We've actually seen something I've never seen before in my 30 years, where the member states moved very fast, super fast, to make sure that we as citizens are taken care of. And it was under your guidance, so thank you very much. And we are seeing more and more things now that the Commission and Santé in particular are doing, which in my opinion is a great job. The EHDS, we actually have something that everyone thought was going to be impossible, but a European health data space. So, kudos to you. We have a health package now coming out. We are looking to rectify the overlap in AI, the AI Act between medical devices, where the medical device regulation does a very, very good job. So, why this overlap? And now that's being looked at very carefully. And then there's the omnibus. So a lot of great, great things happening. We'll hear some good stuff from you, Marco. I might put you a little bit under the hot seat as well. We'll see. But to kick this off, what I'd like to do is I'd like to maybe ask my first question to you, Anik, if I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'd like to just ask you about AI, right? We have medical devices already delivering results, right? So that's great. Diagnostics, we have surgical precision. But how do you scale these innovations? This whole past yesterday and today, it's about scaling. How do we do it? What is your perspective?
Yeah, so I'll first start by saying that it's absolutely true. We see quite a lot of innovation already happening in medical devices in areas like imaging, in areas like diagnostics. So I don't think it's a matter of can we innovate. I think it's truly about how do we deploy at scale across the health systems. So we at Johnson & Johnson, of course, AI is crucial, and it's a key enabler across the entire value chain, ranging from drug discovery into drug development, clinical decision support, as well as further optimization of our systems. But I would say that probably I would highlight two barriers from my side. So I'll first start with data silos and data quality. because AI really requires access to high quality, representative, interoperable data. And if we don't have access to data, to trusted data, then of course we start to kind of slow things down. And that by default, we see that in high burden disease areas like, for example, cardiology, oncology, where that scale really is important, that really matters. The second one that I probably would like to highlight is the fragmentation that we see in the regulatory environment. So I think at EU level, the policies are quite clear. But we do see a difference where we see divergence, we see different levels of interpretations, very often at local markets, and that makes it way more complex. So there is a real need to have a harmonized implementation approach across all of the different member states. I think that's probably a crucial one, because the more that we have unclarity, it starts to lead into legal uncertainty, and then absolutely will slow things down as it relates to innovation as well.
Possible in the EU? Will we get this? Do you think so?
I think we should.
Fantastic. Great.
I think that's a really important one that we really have to fix. So I think overall, I don't think it's about the ambition. I don't think it's about the innovation, but I think it's truly that element of scaling or making sure that we deploy at scale, that we do that in a harmonized way, that we also ensure that the ecosystem is there, like the AI data ready infrastructure, for example, also making sure that hospital can adopt digital transformation, and that we also look at workforce readiness.
All right,
in that
Annie,
regard.
thank you very much. Thank you. That's
Yes.
great. You touched upon innovation. Bartek, let me look to you, right? What are we going to see? I mean, technology is moving so quickly. We've already seen huge progress. We've seen, advancements with AI. We've seen advancement in precision medicine. What are we looking at in the near term?
Yeah, so first of all, me coming from the BMS, maybe just a couple of words about the company itself and how we are incorporating already AI into the whole life cycle of our medicines. In the early discovery, we are already applying AI models for 100% of small molecules, 50% large molecules, before they really hit wet lab, so-called. So really every kind of model that we see patterns at the early development research is being applied to the AI models before we do anything about it. So this is already kind of very entry stage. In the clinical development space, I believe there is a big place for deployment of the wearable technologies. So for the remote patient monitoring, which enable two things, medically graded for sure. One is that it's enable continuous monitoring of the different biosignals. But even more important, what does it mean? We can find a correlation between different spikes of the biosignals to try to predict some of the adverse events that may occur before they happen. So you could imagine the future where the patients are being kind of monitored remotely, and if something bad is about to happen, the patient will be notified with the treated physician at least several hours before it happens. So you see a very, very big potential over there. And then when we move to the kind of real world deployment, imaging, and like you were saying, that's a big play as well. And when we think about the imaging, we can think about, as an example of the CT scans and X-rays for screening from the chest. That's our experience, where we are applying continuously AI algorithm for every images that being performed at the hospitals where the solution is being deployed. And what's happening in the background is that every image is being analyzed for certain disorders. We are focusing on the lung cancer. We have that experience, and we deploy that solution in one of the European markets in Czech Republic. And right now we are scaling that up with our partner, CareBot, across many European markets. And maybe just spinning to that, how that scalability can happen. I always look at it from the positive angle. I think we have a great already legislation in place that is opening the door for that scalability. So we talk about the European Health Data Space. We can talk about the Biotech Act, EU AI Act. It's everything growing the same direction. Is it perfect? Well, it will take time for all different partners to really make the most out of it. But this is definitely the step in the right direction.
Okay, excellent. Bartek, thank you. I think these are very favorable comments. I want to just put up our first poll, and I want that poll to run a little bit as our representatives from government speak. Marco, so you can see this. There's this QR code. You know what to do. How ready is Europe to deploy AI at scale in healthcare? Already started out of the box at 100%. As people do that, let me ask you, Marco. AI features very prominently in several, European Commission initiatives. Right? We've seen the AI Act. Now it's Apply AI strategy. There's going to be a lot of work that we're seeing in simplifying regulatory frameworks. Thank you. Right? But how do these initiatives align with one another? I think that's very important. You have industry players here. There is some confusion. How are they intended to reinforce the big word competitiveness here in Europe? And of course, something we don't talk about, even though I said we have the best healthcare, in Europe than anywhere in the world, but we also want to make sure we're delivering the best digital healthcare than anywhere in the world. So please.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you for the invitation. We will. I mean, it's always very nice to have meetings in this environment because we have the opportunities to discuss even leading edge, or if you want, edge technologies and edge applications, which then root very well in the framework for competitiveness and innovation. So, to reply to your question, how do we see the link? The link is, I would say, threefold. So the first one, it is going in the directions of the call for an ecosystem that is conducive to innovation. You need regulation, and you need regulations that are conducive to innovation. The second one, it is accompanying the players with support actions that are conducive to adoption, which per se is a challenge. And the third one, it is about building capacity from a technological point of view. Now, when it comes to the regulations, because behind a data set there is always a human person, we value very much the rights of people that are attached to that data set, which is the reasons why most of these legislations are anchored in the General Data Protection Regulation, and they clarify, like the European Data Space, the way in which operators can then, take the health data, put it in a form that is either anonymized or pseudo-anonymized, and reuse it for research or for innovation purposes, which is key, especially in the imaging part of the equation. Now, data is the first element, but the second element is in these equations, regulations-wise, is the algorithm. And the algorithm, I think that there is no disagreement on the importance of having in the health sector, say, for instance, the explainability of human oversight when it comes to the applications of AI. And the third one is this is digital Europe, and we know that, the moon, it's white, but there is also the black side of it. So you need to couple that, the cyber regulation, the cyber threat regulations are integral part of this development. So this needs to grow to create a regulations pillar for that ecosystems together. In terms of applications and deployment, imaging is one of those. So what do we do to support the community? Data, through the European Data Space, we will have access to data at scale. For doing certain applications, you need very high quality data, curated data set. So the role of the digital infrastructures and the creations of the database is paramount for us. One of these, since you mentioned imaging, is the European Cancer Imaging Initiative. What is the approach there? That you have the first layer that collects the data and curates, and then you open up to those who develop the algorithm. The third aspect, it's the capacity building. It's the capacity building because you need the technological solutions in Europe, to develop not only the algorithm, but also to train them. Now, what is the framework? The Uber Alles framework is the fact that you create this regulation, the deployment activities, and the capacity to generate trust in those who have to use this application. And this is why we need these three elements.
Good, excellent.
I close that.
Marco, thank you very much. Can we put the poll back up and let's see what the results were? Let's see how much you convinced our audience. Okay.
51%.
You see why it's very nice.
Okay, well, we'll see. Tough audience.
Stop there.
tough,
I know, 51.
tough audience indeed. Let's get the next poll up. And while we do that, I'd like to speak also to this audience here, but all the many hundreds plus at home that are watching this or at work, that you can ask questions as well. So I have got my tablet over here to keep an eye on things. While we answer this question on where can AI have the biggest impact in healthcare, let me look to you, Peter. It is really impressive, I think, since COVID, seeing the leadership that the EMA has done. I've been involved in some initiatives with you, Peter, of course, where I've been flabbergasted at the deep research you've done on technologies and how they can play a role in helping the EMA and the work you do with the CDC, with the Commission and member states. But I understand now that you're creating these AI guiding principles that have been developed. And can you just talk to me a little bit through these objectives and principles of these guidelines?
Okay. So, I mean, the first thing I just wanted to say is I've not been to the Masters of Digital before, and I'm just wondering, as a healthcare product regulator, what our superpower is, and maybe I'll come up with the answer during the course of this panel. The EMA's new vision statement is a fast path from innovation to safe and effective medicines for patients. And I think that's a really nice anchor for our discussion today. We believe AI is central to delivering that fast path right through the life cycle of a medicinal product, which the industry colleagues have outlined. We believe EMA and the medicines regulators or our role is to enable its use and to enable it in a safe and beneficial way. There are two sides to our work on AI. On the one hand, it is supporting the industry for their use in particularly clinical development, well, in product development. And that's got two halves. It's got guidelines, so guidance for everyone, if you like. And I'll come back to that maybe later if there's time. And then there's advice at a product by product, company by company level, which is largely delivered through our scientific advice process, which is proven to increase the chances of getting a product to market successfully. So getting advice from the regulators early is, it's easy to say, but it is demonstrated to be a success factor. As the other half is is using AI as a regulator in our own work and in the way we regulate the industry day to day. We have been investing quite a lot in experimentation and piloting, and some of that has already resulted in products in production. So just a couple of examples. We are using a knowledge mining tool called Scientific Explorer in our routine work on advising companies on their product development and in our assessment of marketing authorization applications. To be able to get really accurate, precise and detailed information from what has gone before. Because, of course, we should always learn from what has gone before. We also have a number of local AI systems in the area of pharmacovigilance, product safety, looking, for example, at duplicate safety reports, looking at monitoring the worldwide literature, just as two examples. So it's a reality in medicines regulation as well as in drug development. You touched on international, and maybe I just want to emphasize, and I think the industry knows this very well, what the problem statement is. The problem statement is if we regulate differently in Europe to the US, to China, to etc., we increase the cost of product development, we slow the pace of product development, and we're basically standing in the way of patients getting new innovative therapies. And because of that, we have work, for example, the guiding principles in AI in medicines development, which we've developed and published with the US FDA. We're currently working on a mapping of terminology that we will make public later in the year. And I understand that ICH, so the on medicines, the International Conference on Harmonization, is discussing whether the time is right to start development of international harmonized guidance on AI in product life cycle. That's not yet decided, but it's being actively discussed. I think international convergence and harmonization are another critical success factor in the fast path from innovation to safe and effective medicines, and we're committed to that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I'm really glad you brought that up because this is not going to be a focus for this discussion, but international harmonization in AI, in cybersecurity is a must happen, but also data. Data has to flow internationally, and we need to make that happen. So more of a message to the folk that do the international work. But thank you very much for that. If we go, just put our poll back on up, and that is really where AI is going to have the biggest impact. That's interesting. I would have not bet on that, but that's great. Medical devices has really taken the lead, and then health system.
You know, a good
efficiency.
survey designer would say, is this, what are we sampling? Who's in the audience?
Yes.
Probably.
Yes, yes. There's an invisible hundreds watching this, so we don't know.
So who's
We
out
don't know. But excellent. So you can take that down. Thank you very much. Let's go back to industry. Anik, if I may, start with you again. We're seeing some, and I think now what you're going to see, we're going to be looking more and more at the EHDS, right? Digital Europe has a lot of work. Gianluca, who is sitting in the front row over here, leads all our work in healthcare. We have a lot of papers up on our website. You should definitely see them. But I think the overwhelming message, and I've already touched upon a few this morning, is industry involvement, right? And we have to be brought in. There is an expertise and value that we can bring to this debate. In the EHDS, I think we did so, and we worked side by side with many, many NGOs, around 50, if I remember correctly, European, to help guide and shape this EHDS. But when we're looking at Europe's leadership in healthcare innovation, right, there's a sense that it's under strain. We keep hearing clinical trials becomes more and more or I should say less and less frequent, and slower market access for innovative devices. This is the idea. So there is simplification that's happening, but we need investments, right? Something I didn't mention, but of huge importance. We need incentives, and it's critical for this. So how do you see that in competitiveness, AI-driven healthcare? And the role that the EHDS, what can it play now that it's kind of on the table?
Yeah, I would probably start by saying, first of all, if we look now, then I think it's all about translating our efforts or our policies really into investments. And so we do know that we have the regulatory simplification, but there are other areas we believe that there are also opportunities. And one absolutely is data access. So we applaud, and I think that for us, EHDS is really a game changer. And it really could provide that trusted, secured access to healthcare data, which is really critical in spaces like R&D, in spaces like scaling AI more globally as well in that domain. There are three no, before I go there, sorry. With regards to the data access, I do want to maybe go back to what I mentioned before. And so it is still really crucial, even though EHDS is a game changer, it still needs to be implemented in a harmonized ways across the different member states. That's going to be crucially important, similarly to the policies that we have or regulations that we have, because otherwise it's still not going to work, I think, and then we still have lack of access to data at that moment. The second one that I would like to highlight is really in the space of skills. And I mentioned it already before. Workforce readiness and upskilling of the people is really crucial as well, and not only in clinical, but also non-clinical stakeholders, regulatory, notified bodies. We all need to make sure that we start adopting AI and we start adopting new technologies. So I would say that's the second one from an investment perspective. And the third one that I probably want to highlight is the public-private partnerships. And I am going to start with industry, right? Because I really believe that partnerships across industries are first also really critical in this space. We have to start partnering. We have to start working much more closer together. I think the second one, when you look at public-private partnerships, there are really ways where we can look at deployment models. So thinking about data science centers of excellence, for example, thinking about maybe hospital of the future, where you can really have a kind of a playground where we can start integrating into the workflows, sharing of best practices across different industry, across different teams. And I think also EHDS really plays a really important element in that respective context as well. So these are probably the three that I would like to highlight, because if, for me, I think the regulatory simplification is of course crucial, but if we do not really make sure that we start investing into the overall ecosystem, infrastructure, upskilling, workforce, the data and the accessibility to data, then if we do that, then I think innovation and R&D, I think that Europe will be extremely strong and very competitive in this space.
Annick, thank you very much. While you were speaking, I think someone online got a hint of an excellent question. And it's a question I want to bring to you, Bartek. So same question that I asked Annick is the same question for you. But this viewer, and I think, Marco, this is a good one for you as well. It's great to have all these technologies, but what happens if they're not being bought? And what can we do to scale them in the hospitals, in the national health systems? This goes, by the way, for any other vertical. Now we're talking about defense a lot today, right? The past 2 days. Great, we have all these amazing technologies, but if they're not being purchased and they're not being scaled up, then what can we do to make that happen? So you can answer that or not. Marco, you definitely have to answer that. But
no, thank you. And I will touch base on that one as well with some comments. But first of all, I love the headsets. It feels like, the silent disco thing. It's a quite interesting experience. But just kind of building on everything that you said, would definitely resonates with us. I would like to maybe call out, kind of double click on some of those elements. So when we talk about the European health data space, and Marco, you were kind of alluding to that already, is we as an industry, we really kind of value the all kind of description of the secondary use of the data. So really the access for research, for innovation in the secure manner for the data itself, for the personal health data of people, but also that there is the comprehensive conversation about how can we secure the IP of companies that are kind of operating on that data. So I think it's a very, very kind of welcome direction on the European health data space, as well, of course, what we were talking before about standardizing the health electronic records and improving that interconnectivity, interoperability between different countries. So that's definitely something which is extremely important. When we look at the clinical trials, I also would like to go back to the Biotech Act that also is highlighting some of the improvements that we see down the line with the AI-driven clinical trials. Because when you think about the clinical trials, of course, it's about the cost, but also it's related to how quickly can we recruit the right patient that could benefit the most from the trial itself, and how can we accelerate that whole access to the medication, to the next generation of the medication across all disease areas. But the question that it's asked on the poll, the way how I would kind of spin it around is that our job across whole partners is really to showcase how health is really equal to wealth. Because when you think about the health, when you think about the, and I will give maybe a couple of examples. If we catch diseases earlier, we'll have a healthier society. Healthier society can contribute more to the whole economic value for the whole society as well. So health kind of translates to wealth when you think about that overall bigger umbrella picture. And very tangibly, just going back to the example I was giving before about the remote patient monitoring and the possibility that technology can already provide, just think about it as more outpatient setting clinic, outpatient treatment in the outpatient setting can significantly optimize the cost of the healthcare system. Because the patients, for example, do not have to be hospitalized at the ICU beds, which are very scattered. So there is a very close correlation between health and investment in technology in health and the value proposition from the monetization point of view. The whole point is to kind of have that link very clearly quantify, and as well being able to track, what's the real benefit.
I think that's super important. The more we see the advancements and growth and development and profitability of healthcare technologies, the better healthcare we get. Right, that is spot on. Thank you very much, Marco. When we first started this journey on EHDS, there was a view that there would be, innovation that would derive from it. How can we make sure that happens? And also, how can we make sure that it's being purchased and scaled up in the systems where it has to be used?
The two questions, hands in hands, would require probably an entire day for analysis. Let's see whether I can put some elements, and then we may even continue these discussions in other forum, and probably that's my best message today that I can offer to you. So the first one, the rationale for having the European Health Data Space comes from years of experience on the lack of data. And there was a moment in history when we realized that the access to that data was paramount, and we did not have access to that data. And you mentioned that period in your beginning. So that changed also the approach to having an interoperable systems to access data across the 27 member states. And what we did together, this was not done by A parties only, to respond to that call to create a regulation that would, at the same time, create the rights for people to access their data in electronic form, irrespective of whether they are in Europe, and in the same regulation, specify how that health data can be used by third party in a very clear form, with very clear boundaries, which are written in the regulation. So here, it's not about now inventing what to do, what not to do, because what you can do and how you can do that, it's written in the regulation. That is a major piece. There are no other, piece of legislations like this in Europe. Now, why is this conducive to innovation? Because more and more, certainly capacity-wise, the algorithm, it's important, but the specializations of that algorithm on specific questions does rely access to very high and curated data sets. If you don't have access to that data, you are stuck with what you have in terms of technological solutions. So this is the reasons why it's important. Now, to link to these questions, and then on the funding part at national systems, the Commission works in a cooperation mode with the member states. We do not do that. But to answer that question, the first element is to understand where are the barriers to adoption. And not, before you answer the questions to procurement, check the questions to adoption. And if as you mentioned, that SCIDS is one of these, because technically I don't trust the systems that I don't know, then the investment journey should, from research and development until, post-market surveillance and adoption, understand these challenges and address them. So to link this to what we are doing now is, if you look at the proposals for the next MFF and ECF, these are integral part of the discussion, not only in terms of research and innovation, not only in terms of competitiveness, but also the role of the national and regional plans to address these things. So I think that that's where we would help. And let me say just one word, because you mentioned the story of cooperation, you mentioned how important it is to develop these systems together. The technological underpinnings of the European Health Data Space are being consulted widely in Europe through projects, through initiatives that open up. So please intervene with your say. Why are we doing that? Because that's the best way of achieving something which will be then adopted at scale in the 27.
Excellent. Marco, thank you very much. I see my clock ticking down, but there should be more time on there. We're going to try to add some time there. But Peter, let me go to you. EHDS and the EMA, what are your thoughts?
Maybe firstly, just kudos to Marco and the team for having the inspiration to have come up with the European Health Data Space, because it is a first, it is ambitious, and it has huge potential. So how we feel about it in medicines regulation is huge excitement at the potential. EMA has at least 15 years experience of secondaries of healthcare data. We've been doing it in our daily work, historically, particularly in the area of safety monitoring, but more and more across the life cycle of medicinal products. And we see the benefit of what we call real-world evidence in terms of supporting decision-making. Our flagship initiative is called Darwin EU. Many of you will have heard of it. And it's led to more than 100 studies. It's 180 million patients. It's 40 data partners, and it goes from strength to strength. So we can learn from that, and we can use that to support the implementation of the European Health Data Space. And we're committed to sharing and supporting and commenting, as you say, on the implementing measures and the technical aspects, which will be really important for a successful implementation. Just to go back to research and development, and I'm obviously seeing it particularly through a medicines lens, but it'll be relevant to medical devices as well. The clinical trial remains core to clinical evidence development, but more and more we are seeing a role for real-world evidence as a complement to clinical trials. Indeed, if we have really good access to healthcare data across the spectrum of diseases and populations, we can even start using healthcare data as part of the clinical trial, be it to select patients, be it as a comparator arm, or be it as long-term follow-up, just as 3 examples. So we see huge potential for access to healthcare data and secondaries of healthcare data to accelerate product development. And we see the European Health Data Space as the ultimate accelerator, if you like. It's accelerating digitalization of healthcare because many of the member states are now investing in electronic health records, for example, in anticipation of the implementation of the EHDS, and of course putting in place the how and the procedures for wide and deep access to healthcare data. And the great thing about the EHDS is it will deliver that safely and respecting the privacy and the fundamental rights of citizens, and therefore build trust. At EMA, we're very excited to be part of EHDS implementation, and we're fully committed to trying to make it work.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. We're running out of time. I want to look to our industry players. Your final thoughts, right? Let us know. You've heard this discussion, today. What do you want to communicate? What do you want to ask the European Commission, the member states who are watching? The floor is yours. Anik, let's start with you.
I think I shared quite a few elements. I think we have a lot, right? So let's not underestimate everything that we already have. When we look at EHDS, when we look at MDR, IVDR, we also have seen lots of progress in currently looking at the revisions. We absolutely welcome all of that work. Also the AI Act and everything that is associated with that. So I think that we have a lot currently that is available to us. If we make sure that we build on kind of the ecosystem readiness, I'll call it, like, first of all, as I mentioned, making sure that we do that harmonized implementation across the different member states, I think that's absolutely a critical one, because there we do see some differences still. And I would say, looking at the overall ecosystem, it is truly about making sure that we have the skills and the workforce readiness, making sure that we have the infrastructure readiness, and ensuring that we can actually start applying, making sure that we adopt technologies, which was already mentioned. And then I truly believe that we can drive innovation and that Europe will be a highly competitive region. Absolutely.
Okay. And Bartek?
I'll just kind of maybe keep it short on a couple of elements. So one, definitely we should look at data infrastructure as a strategic infrastructure, full stop. And we're talking about it for the last 40 minutes. We could talk for a week probably about it, but this is a strategic infrastructure, and that's what will enable all innovation, application of the AI, and accelerate the innovation happening in Europe. And the second thing is the collaboration and collaboration with the European Commission, collaboration with the regulatory bodies. And I just want to say, Marco, Peter, your teams are doing an amazing job with the guidelines, with the different legislations. It's already on the right pathway. Let's continue that collaboration between industry, between policymakers, between the regulators, and that will be the key to success.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm being asked to wrap up. So we've covered a lot of different areas. It's been very friendly on this panel, but there is work that needs to be done, right? We got to make sure these AI principles are being listened to. We got to make sure the international cooperation is being done. Industry can help you, and governments across the world should be listening to you. And thank you for your leadership. We should definitely be looking at skills. We need to make sure there's the right incentives. We need to make sure there's a confidence in the market. We've heard some excellent stuff about, what the technologies can do, but there's still some data silos. There's data markets that have to be rectified. Bartek, you gave us a lot of great examples about AI models and wearable technologies. And so there is a hopeful, great future in Europe to develop all these technologies. But, we do see some issues in clinical trials dropping here. There's questions about IP rights that we didn't talk about today. Industry can play a hugely impactful role to the health data access bodies, to advise them, to let them know, what is something that could totally destroy or hurt innovation and what can help. So that's a thing that we can play. Marco, really, I think a little bit of the superpower and superhero on the panel, because you really help drive these things, But we do need your continued cooperation. We do need, as industry, to continue to work for us. You've been a valuable partner. Please remain so. And then, of course, Peter. I think that
I've worked out what the superpower is, by the way.
Tell me.
It's healthcare data. It's very simple. Our superpower
heard it
in
here
Europe
today.
is healthcare data.
It's healthcare data. And I'm going to close here, and I want to just thank everybody for being on this panel. It was a great discussion. It could have gone longer. Maybe it'll go longer now during the break. And I just want to wish everyone at home for tuning in, and I wish everyone all the best. And please stay for the rest of the sessions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.